Hello everyone and welcome to the iSpring Solutions webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today as this is our first webinar after we took a short break to go to the DevLearn conference which took place in Las Vegas, Nevada. We had lots of fun. We got to talk with our existing clients and we also met some prospects who may become iSpringers in the future. Our Quality Assurance Director participated in the panel discussion for eLearning Brothers stage, and she, along with Trivantis, Gomo, and Adobe, were talking about what e-learning is going to be in 20 years. So if you guys are interested in this information, be sure to check out eLearning Brothers website. My name is Paulina. I am a community manager and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. And I have invited a very special guest, Dr. Mark Proctor from University of Sunderland. Hello, Mark. Thank you very much for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm great, very excited because Mark is going to be talking about his 5 wins for curating learning online in higher education with iSpring. So I think that you guys will very much enjoy his case. And if you have any questions for Mark or any comments or concerns for me, be sure to share them in the question box and you may find it on the right side of the GoToWebinar panel. Somewhere at the bottom it should be. And I have just one very small announcement that I would like to share with you. So some of you guys may remember that we just finished our webinar series a couple of weeks ago, which we held about how to create great e-learning content from A to Z. And it consisted of 10 whole webinar episodes. And we also held a contest for you guys to win 60, 45, or 30-minute live consultation with our webinar expert, Michael Shiashi. And I am super excited to announce the winners. And in order to do that, let me please go to our website. So I'm in the blog right now, and this is our main blog post for this webinar series. And by the way, for those of you who have not heard about it or didn't have a chance to join, here you may find all the links to the webinar recordings. And also for some of the webinars, long reads are already available. So the contest rules were very simple. You just had to share what you learned during this webinar series and post this comment and get the most likes. So I can see 3 top comments right now in the comment section, and it looks like Emily H gets the 60-minute online consultation. Congratulations, Emily! And a software company gets 45-minute online consultation. And also Jim D, you get a half an hour a minute online consultation with Michael Shiashi, one and only. And in order to get this prize, please either give a call to this number that you see on the screen, 844-347-7764, or send a message to customer.care@ispringsolutions.com, and I will get back to you guys and let you know how you can retrieve your prize, which I think is amazing. So congratulations to all our winners. Thank you very much, guys, for joining our online webinar series. It's been a pleasure to hold it for you. And now I'm finally ready to pass the microphone to you, Mark. So let me please do that right now.
Okay, thank you, Paulina. Thank you, Paulina. I'm Mark Proctor from the University of Sunderland, and I better say show my screen so you can see my screen. Is that okay? Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Good. Okay, I'm Mark Proctor from the University of Sunderland, and for the last 9 years at Sunderland, what I've been doing is organising workshops for researchers. And these workshops have been for researchers that are at the beginning of their research career, such as the postgraduate research students, the MPhil and PhD students, right up to readers and professors. Now, about 3 years ago, I came across iSpring, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you how I've moved content from our live face-to-face sessions for postgraduate research students and also supervisors online. And the thing is that I'm going to tell you some things today that I've classed as 5 wins for curating learning online and higher education with iSpring. And as you listen to my thoughts, I would like you to just to consider if you've been in the same position as me a few years ago, and also if there's anything that I do that you could use. Maybe at the end of this presentation, you'll have the presentation itself that I provide today in a format that you can look at, and you can just take slides, adapt them, and use them for your own use as well. So at the end of it, apart from me going through what I've done, maybe I could help you along the way as well if you're new to iSpring. If you're not, it'll be interesting to see what you've done and what your challenges are. But I want to start at the end point. I want to jump straight in there and say, did it work? You bet your life it did. The PhD students and the MPhil students and the supervisors all said yes. And here is just a little bit of general feedback that I received on the approach, which I really like this statement. This is absolutely brilliant. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that it will revolutionize the process of training. And I think it's a wonderful innovation. Yes, if you look towards the bottom here, the general feedback on the materials also said they were useful. So that's all very good. Now, there is a bit more feedback there, and you can have a look at that at your own leisure. But I want to jump straight in with something that really matters to me, and that is the core challenges that I was facing just before I got my hands on iSpring. With regards to research degree students, the face-to-face time frame is a ridiculously difficult thing. What we have in terms of a student population is we have roughly 300 students here at the University of Sunderland, and roughly half of them are part-time researchers and a few distance learners, not many. Now, you might think, well, they're part-time, but they live locally, and some do, some not so local. But they still get problems accessing the course in terms of attending the days, get days off work to do it. They also find that the face-to-face sessions sometimes is not at the appropriate, it doesn't give the level of learning that they really need. So say, for instance, I'll have to give you an example here. In the induction program, we have 4 straight days of workshops. Each workshop is roughly 1 hour long, and we have each workshop on a different topic. So there's a lot of content crammed in, but actually, how much can you learn in an hour? Probably not enough. They then have to go out and really learn a lot more around the topic area. In some cases, yes, it'll just be about the assessments, and that's fine. Other cases, it might be something like learn and referencing software, for instance, where we can demonstrate the software, we can have them have a go in a workshop, but then they have to go out of the workshop home to their own machines and start using it. And so this time frame is a bit of a difficult situation where there's only a short time frame to get in the content that we want, and when they get home, they could really do with some extra help as well. As I mentioned, access to the course for part-time students can be problematic. Every year we have 1 or 2 students can't make all of the induction program, and we have to organize some sort of extra support to cover that information elsewhere. There is the course timing as well. So we initially have an induction program at the very beginning, and that front loads the PhD. That gives them all the information they need to carry them at least halfway through the life of PhD. But as you can imagine, this is not really ideal, because they may want to consider project management, for instance, part of the way through, not almost on day 1. So that might not be ideal for them. As well, if you look at the other end, we have a course for the assessment at the end, attending the Viva, and also writing the PhD thesis, which is quite a difficult bit of work for them to do. Now, the thing is, with writing a thesis, some students start earlier on. They may start halfway through or even before that. Others might leave it until last year. So when do they attend this workshop? If they attend it really early on, they might forget by the time that they want to write up. And if they attend too late, well, it's not really as effective as it could be. So the course timing is an issue. The last one is the turnover of the delivery team. What I will say is that in my 9 years, we've had some wonderful presenters doing some wonderful work with really useful content. And certainly in the last few years, a few of them have retired. As these lecturers move on, maybe to another job, but maybe retirement, how do we as program leaders, and I organize these programs, how do we as program leaders retain that information and keep the course content? Now, yes, I can take the PowerPoint presentations and describe what's happening to the next presenter, but it's not quite the same in some cases. It would be really nice to have that person delivering the course in the future. And iSpring allows us to tackle all of those different issues. So me and my iSpring toolkit to the rescue. And that was about 3 years ago. I picked up iSpring and I've really begun to love this piece of software just because it's so simple to use. But more importantly, you can take anything you want and just throw it at this piece of technology and it just generates such a lovely interface, such as the one that you're viewing now, for navigating around the presentation and seeing it clearly. Can I just ask you to look at the comments box, the question box, and just mention if you are facing the same type of issue or if you have some other issues. Maybe Paulina can read them out. You just take a moment to do that.
I sure will as soon as they appear. And guys, if you provide your feedback, this will definitely help us.
Do you have similar issues or have you had similar issues?
So
I'll tell you what, we'll leave that for now. There may be one or two come through, Paulina. Please just interrupt and jump straight in. But now, onto some really juicy things. When you start doing online material of any description, how many times do you hear the words, "No, you shouldn't do that"? Well, everything I'm going to show you today, I've heard at least one person say, "You shouldn't do that." And I'm going to say, do it anyway. Because when it comes down to it, if it works for you, then great. And if it works for the learners, even better. If it doesn't work, you don't need to do it again and you can experiment to your heart's content. But you've got to start somewhere. The first thing is to develop some branding. Now, what I'm going to say with this is add as much zing as possible, or as much zing as you would like to add. And what do I mean by that? Let's just brighten up this introductory slide and add zing to the lives of our learners. So here we have a little introductory slide. And what I'm going to do is to put actions into this template. First, yes, I made a colorful picture in the background and developed this branding, which looks okay. But then I didn't think that was quite enough. So I added some animation to the titles. I then added a size, an expand and shrink animation to the picture in the background. And then I decided to animate everything I possibly could. Then the next thing I did was to add a sound, just to add the icing on the cake. And you'll hear that in a moment, but I'm going to skip that slide for now. So I had something that was really nice. And I was really thinking at that point, is there any more I can do? Because this is working. Zing is good. I like this. So how do I introduce the university, maybe like in the movies, as a crescendo to this? So I took the University of Sunderland Presents and I generated this. I used a shooting star in PowerPoint, made the words University of Sunderland Presents as pretty as possible, did as many different entrances as I possibly could, and then I spun out the University of Sunderland at the end. So I really tried to jazz it up, and I quite like that. But then I started to think, is there even any more that I can do? But what I found early on was that if I produced a narrated presentation and put it online and asked it to start immediately, then I would hear the presenter talking. Now that's okay if you've got one, but when you're in my position where you want to put up maybe 2 or even 3 on the same web page within the VLE or on the same page on the VLE, then it just doesn't work. 3 presentations starting to talk to you is a little bit mad. So what I wanted to do was to have a start slide with a play button on, where the learner would click the play button to start the presentation. Next thing is I wondered if I could have a videoed introduction, use some custom animation in the transition slides, for some transition slides, and even put an acknowledgement slide in there. And what I've learned so far is add lots of zing. You can never have too much. Here's the play button. And you've already seen this presentation, or this part of the presentation. You can see the University of Sunderland where the star comes in and the words enter in different ways, spin out. And here's my videoed introduction. And what you'll notice is I have a star working along the bottom as well. Now, I know you can't hear this presentation, but Polina will give you a copy at the end that you can listen to. Here's transition slide 1, and I generated this with circles, same with 2 and 3, because I wanted to section some of my presentations into 3 sections. And I used a PowerPoint animation called Credits here. And yes, it looks very much like in the movies. Okay, and what I will say as well is just a note that PowerPoint Spice online is very useful, and certainly I got the idea of the star from her, and also this last animation here for credits. But at the same time, I really found my zing limit. So what I found was that I could add zing, but you can almost never have too much, but life's a bit too short to have all this zing all the time. What I actually use now is I use this first play button. I do use the custom introduction slides, but I don't use the videoed presentation or the transition slides or the acknowledgements, but they'll be there for you to use if you want. Obviously change the video. You don't want me in the video.
Hey Mark, we have a comment from Andrea, and she says,
Okay.
I will argue the point that yes, you can have too much if it distracts the student to the point of losing out on learning the material because it's too visually cluttered. What do you think?
Fair enough. I think everybody's entitled to the opinion. And actually, I have to agree to some point, because what I've got here is I tried to mimic some of the YouTube videos and just basically have an introduction that was all zing, all singing and dancing. And I went too far even at that point. So I think there is a limit, and certainly on the screens that the learner is learning on, then yes, you need to be careful. And actually, in a lecture presentation, I don't tend to use animations at all. Mm-hmm. And when I do the narrated presentations in iSpring, the ones with the narrations on generally don't have animations on either. So they're very plain to look at. So in that respect, I completely agree. But in terms of just an introduction, I like a bit of sparkle.
And we have at the same time a comment from Jay West. That's some very nice zing. Amazing.
Well, thank you very much, and you're welcome to use it. Maybe you could add even more zing. I don't know. I think I've probably reached the limit ever.
Thank you, Mark.
But it's good to see what iSpring will do, especially earlier on.
Right.
Now, lectures. My next tip, my next quick win. Face-to-face lectures, narrated PowerPoint presentations, screencasts, just use all of it, but add signposting. Now, I know that if you are using iSpring and you're sitting in front of the computer and you're doing the generation of the narration yourself, then fine, you don't need to go there with any extra bits and bobs, any extra tools. But me, I want to capture lectures, live lectures, and I couldn't set computers up at the front of the classroom to work in a way with iSpring that would just work for the presenter. So without intruding in the presenter's presentation, what I did was to buy a dictaphone for 50 or 60 pounds. And here's a picture of the dictaphone here. And a clip-on lapel mic from Speedlink, which, believe it or not, is about £7. And I got some pretty good results with that. So if you're looking at a way to capture audio from some workshops or live face-to-face sessions, then you can just buy a dictaphone, plug in a mic, and off you go. And the good thing about this is that I have I have academics who don't have much time on their hands. So getting them to sit down in front of a computer is not going to be easy. But when it comes to standing up and doing their presentation, no problem at all. So they're quite happy to clip on a mic, walk around, do their stuff, walk out and let you have the editing to do. But they're not so keen to sit down in front of the machine. So this worked for me. So I captured some live face-to-face lectures. I'm going to just play part of 2 slides here. I want you to notice the warmth and personality of the presenters here. And just notice that I did edit out group discussions, ums and ers. And I'm going to now switch off my mic and just play a little section of the next 2 slides, just to see what you think, see if it works or not, because I like it. But I have 2 presentations. The first one, which is basically a lecture with a little tiny bit of interaction. The second one was a complete group discussion that was much bigger than the 1.5 minutes that I've got on the slide. But I'm just going to play just a little bit of each and see what you think.
What predicts success with a PhD? Well, as I said, intelligence helps, emotional intelligence, curiosity and conscientiousness. Intelligence, you have to have the problem-solving skills. EI, how to read others, for example. Do you read that your supervisor is perhaps not too happy with your work that you've done, but it's very polite, but you perhaps read the body language which says, perhaps we ought to have this conversation about how I can improve that. And have a curiosity, lateral thinking. You know, sometimes you can come around to something a different way around, think about it, and you do have to be conscientious.
Something for you to think about. There's another type of reading, critical reading. What do you think critical reading is? Focused reading, say a bit more. You're getting more content. Yeah, you're looking, what is the argument, and then you're agreeing or disagreeing. You're evaluating very much, you're evaluating the text.
Okay, hopefully now I'm back online. You can hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear that?
Yep, and I have a quick question for you from Jay West.
Okay.
Do you add video of this lecture as well?
No, I haven't with these ones, because what I've done is just to use the clip-on mic and the dictaphone. People tend to be okay with recording the audio, and it allows you to really edit out anything that they would be embarrassed about anybody else hearing. If there's a little section of ums and ers, you can just remove it quite quickly and easily. You can't do the same with video, but I have got a videoed presentation, a lecture presentation that I made, and that's come up now. Would you like to? I'm not going to play that one, but I will describe why I've got it in.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay, so with regards to audio presentations, then I quite like it. And now if you notice, the second one was very much a group discussion, and although there's 1.5 minutes of audio there was probably much more discussion, but I edited out the group discussions, the students talking, and it sounds to me like that presenter's externalizing their thoughts as they're going along, with a little bit of conversation with some students. And that's something that you just would never ever hear if someone was sitting in front of a computer talking to iSpring and talking through their PowerPoint. So you can get some real feeling in there and some odd results, but I actually like those odd results. And it'll be interesting to hear if you like that sort of thing as well. You can leave the group discussions in as long as the students are happy for that to happen. And actually, things like Panopto do it automatically, and a lot of lectures don't even bother editing that, they just put it up online. But I like the idea of taking out the sections, making it shorter and easier listening. Now, as far as face-to-face lecture presentations that are videoed, I took a video presentation of a lecture I did. It was about an hour long. Now, the thing you should never do is put on a lecture presentation an hour long for students to watch. So what I did was I cut it into small sections. For guidance through the presentation, I used the slide titles and the outlines so that they're shown on the side here so students can navigate. And what I've got because of that is basically like a YouTube playlist through a lecture presentation that's been chunked into key parts where the students can go back just even to little parts of the lecture, which is quite an interesting thing to have a go at. So here's an embedded YouTube video, just because one of the lecturers was using one and I wanted to shove it in there. The next one, I'm not going to play the audio on this one just because time's pressing on, but you'll be able to listen to it after the webinar. And what it is you can see that it's a two-minute clip of a presentation that I gave. And that brings me on to the next little bit here. If you've got a small series of screencasts, like introducing some software, and here I've introduced some qualitative analysis software called MPhil, then it's very similar to doing a short demonstration at the front of the room. I've got slide titles and use the outline in my presentation. I've got an overview slide, active web links to support, and then a what next call to action, which is basically to call up the next presentation to download the software and get on and start to use it. So these particular slides from 42 up to 49 are actually introducing some software. Here's the outline, nothing special, just telling the student what will be coming next. Towards the end, give it a go with active links to a software page so students can very quickly see if their computer's compatible, Mac or Windows. And then the second link takes them to a place where if they're from the University of Sunderland, they can download the software within minutes. So this is a handy page for students to jump onto and click, and they've got the software. And there's the what next, just telling them about the next video presentation. It's almost like a sales pitch for the next one. Now, what about large number of videos or screencasts? Well, I've got one here, and it's worthwhile considering extra signposting, extra slides in the middle, and guiding the learner through, possibly by adding audio on. And again, I'm not going to play it again just because of time, but this slide here has myself just presenting the next video presentation as something like this. So on the next slide, you'll have an overview of Zotero referencing software. And then when the student goes to the next slide, they can see the video presentation. If I go to the next section I've got in terms of 5 quick wins for curating online or learning online, assessments for learning. It's not, forget the mark is nothing new. Formative assessment is what I'm talking about here. But talk to the machine. I just thought I'd have some fun. What I meant by this was that I could take a quiz where normally students would sit in a workshop, And in this case, it's about writing and some of the issues that students face, just generic issues around writing. And I've taken this text to basically create a simulation. And I feel that this generates an emotional learning experience in a way that the face-to-face might generate as well when people are talking. But it's really a bit more than that. So I'll just explain. Here it is. It's about giving advice. So the student is about to give advice to 11 students, research students, who are in different situations. And if you click to begin, first students pondering over their problem. Every 30 or 40 minutes, this person tends to drift off. Now, students can have some fun with this. So here's 3 answers. You just have to try harder. Oh, she's not happy. You can see the barometer's gone down. What? I can't try any harder. If you want to be really devilish, just give up. Feedback, are you joking? I have worked for 6 years part-time to complete all of my research, and I only have 1 chapter of my thesis left to write. Choose a different answer. And of course, the right answer is, this is normal. Just take a break every 5 minutes. And oh, thank you for your supportive comment. I was beginning to worry. Yes, and so on and so on. And you can see how that works. So you get some real nice facial expression with the feedback. You have a barometer, and I just love that. And the student can do this before they come in for the workshop, and they can discuss the sort of answers that they give to this virtual PhD student. And I'll just click through the next few things. Once they've finished giving advice, then they get some top tips in this one as well. And what I've done is to include this quiz in the information and materials so you can see how it's laid out. I have a few slides that I can talk through at the very end if you wish, but basically you'll find out that this is an introduction, and these 4 scenes here are to do with one question. The middle one is the question itself. The 2 outside ones are the wrong answers, and this one here is the correct answer with feedback. And the idea is that by displaying it like this, it is very easy for me to follow. And I just copied and pasted into the slots. So I'm going to skip those slides now.
Mark?
Yeah?
And there is one quick question from Mary. How did you create the barometer?
The barometer was automatic. It's just a checkbox. I think it was there already. It was just one of the options. But at the end, if you want to demonstrate that, Polina, you can, or I can jump into the quiz. But at the same time, the materials will be available, won't they? You make the presentation and the quizzes available for everybody to click on and just have a look at.
Yeah, that's correct. And you were absolutely right. You can turn on the mood meter for each character, and also for each answer you can grant points, either positive or negative. So at the end you can get the result in your LMS system, for example, if you pass or fail this conversation. But I assume that you were using it just for fun, maybe, or for a little practice.
Well,
so you didn't really need these points.
No, it really wasn't about assessment. It's purely about giving students advice. And the funny thing is, they're giving virtual students advice, and if they're in the same position afterwards, then they can take their own advice. And you know as well as I do that when it comes to generally people, and I'm definitely included with one of those people, I'm very good at giving advice, but I'm not so good at taking it. So you can give your own you give your own advice and bring it back later. But basically, we have a face-to-face workshop after this, and students can talk through the answers as well. But it's a wonderful little tool for those that can't get to the workshop.
Right.
And okay, should I move on quickly?
Yeah, please.
Got
Thank
2
you.
little sections left. So one is quizzes, and okay, quizzes. You would think it's really a tool for assessment quite often. Not in my case. I used it for feedback from the courses. I have 2 examples here. I like to be simple and effective. I've got one example here, and you can see the screen, one of the screens here for setting it up, where the results are emailed to an email address, and I've changed my own. I've took my own email address out and put this fake email at sunderland.ac.uk in, so you can get an idea of what the students thought at the end. Alternatively, and I like to do this anyway, just as an experiment, you can be as creative as you like. And I did that as well. So I generated a presentation early on using pictures and audio, and you'll see that area there at the top right of any quizzes that you make. Now, I'll just very quickly say that the next slides show the pictures from generating the quiz. What I've actually done is to use survey questions. In the middle, you'll see the question itself, like name and a short answer down here. And the results section, I've ticked all the boxes. So I want to say yes to those. In regards to the properties, it's in the properties where you'll see that you're able to send yourself the results when it's submitted. And also you can have it submitted so that it gives the quiz title in the email that comes back. So I think that's really good in terms of features. And here's the plain one. Start the quiz, put your name in, submit it, email, submit it. Did this approach work? And so on. And then at the end of it, the student gets a thank you very much for completing this survey. The next one is the creative survey. And I've used a Likert scale here for giving specific answers to specific questions, as well as adding lots of color. You can't hear it, but I've added this audio asking people, I'll pause it, asking people to fill in the quiz. They start the quiz. You can see a picture in the background. They can click on the buttons to choose their answers, submit that, and then there's a few comments boxes, and again I get the results from that. And they get a thank you very much reply. And the very last thing, when it comes to using iSpring, one of the most important and useful features is the ability to have hyperlinks included in the pages that are active. I can't stress that enough. And the idea is that it takes the learner out of the presentation, out of the flow of the presentation, and can then do more learning. And so you can point the learners to different web pages. I've got one here. You can't hear my narration, but you can see the animations, and you can see the links in the middle here to active web pages that can be clicked on, which is quite useful. Maybe this is over the top in terms of what to do. But then we have audio signposting, where in this slide, all I've done is to talk the student through clicking on the links. The top one is to a PDF, teaching them how to use Zotero in 1 hour. Very short, like a cheat sheet for using this referencing software. And then point them to some online guides and tutorials that are external, that I haven't produced, to give them more opportunities for learning as well. And with that, I have to say I've probably had my time for the first half now. I've given my 5 quick wins for curating learning online in higher education with iSpring. I've probably broken a few rules, hopefully not upset anybody in the process, but what I will say is branding, I like it. But I have met at least one academic here who would prefer to have a lot less. Lectures, just use all of it. I've got an hour and 3/4 worth of lecture and screencast together, where a student might see me doing something in a lecture, and then the next slide is a screencast where they can see it, the computer screen. Assessments for learning, I would suggest that if you have a quiz on a piece of paper that doesn't require any sort of assessment or grade, then have a go with a simulation. Quizzes for quality control, very useful indeed. Animations or audios with web links to help the learner through your particular presentation, but also direct them outside for further learning, I would say is a must. And with that, thank you very much for listening. Hi, Polina.
Thank you very much, Mark. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, and it's now time for Q&A. So let's begin with the first question. Actually, let me first read you a couple of comments that were sent at the beginning when you were asking about the challenges people may have. So the first
Okay.
comment is from Mary. We are creating an online course from material that was used for in-person training. I would like to see examples of converting ILT materials to e-learning. So I think you have demonstrated right how to convert that to online learning.
Well, the thing is that if it's videoed, then you can drop the videos in. I would say that you might want to chunk the videos up into sections and then put titles like subsections for your what is in effect an iSpring version of a YouTube playlist. But otherwise, if you're happy to deal with audio and edit out any parts that you think, well, if I was given that presentation, I wouldn't like that included, then go for it. And buy a dictaphone and a lapel mic and off you go.
Thank you very much. And the next one, the second one is from George. I have a timing issue in presenting material to my classes in biology. Some students need the information while others hold off on tackling the class information until late in the course.
Okay.
Processing?
So what is it that this person would like to happen? Is it that he would like to motivate the pupils early on? Or is it to just basically have some legacy lectures online for those people who decide last minute, I wish I'd watched that and been listening?
Right. George, please
Which
let
one
us
is it?
know. Which way would you like to head? Okay, and let's move on to the questions while we are waiting for George's comment. So the next one is from Sarah. How did you get the star to come with the words on the bottom?
Okay, you will have the slide, Sarah. So you have the ability to look at the slide. But while you're waiting for George's response, would you like me to pull up the presentation itself and show you?
If it's not gonna take
Actually, we
too much
don't
time.
have time now. The way it works is a bit of trial and error. So what I did was, you'll see two stars, not one. There's one 16-pointed star and one 4, and they rotate in opposite directions. So one's counterclockwise, one's clockwise, and together, what I did then was a custom animation where I took it through a path and stopped it just before the word. At that point there in the animations panel, I introduced the words as one letter at a time, and also at the same time then asked the stars, if you like, to move across. And what you have to do is you have to play about with the timing in terms of the speed of the words coming up and the star moving across. So in essence, you slow down the speed of the star moving across, but I don't mind if it doesn't quite match up. So it's not perfect. It's a bit more of an art than a science, but it does work quite well. And if you want to learn how to do it, then you have the presentation slide, but you also have a link in my acknowledgement slide to the actual online presentation that PowerPoint Spice made. Just wait for it to come up. On this particular slide, there's a link, and that will take you to how to generate that star and how to move it around. So you have an opportunity to see how it's done in practice, an example, but also you can see how to do it yourself.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mark. All right, so we got a comment from George, and he says, how do you create a script of a lesson for those who have a disability from a lecture?
Well, the thing is that if you're in that position where you want to generate a script, then it's possible to have a transcript at the side of the presentation if you wish. We haven't done that. So if a student is in that position, we actually have small numbers of students, and we tend to do a one-to-one approach if we want to do that. But you can do it, but obviously you have to type in the script, and then you can attach it to the side panel as in your lecture notes. So in PowerPoint, do you know, does the person know that you can have your notes at the below the slide? Come on, Mark. Here we go. Let's just open this up. Right. Here we go. And I think this is quite important to say, so I'm just going to show you that if you go at the bottom of the slide and bring it up, you can type in the transcript in that position there in the notes section, and then when you do the iSpring conversion, when you publish it, what you can do is you can display your notes. So you can go into the customize.
Right, in the player.
And then in the player itself, you can decide that you want to, if I go to the full one, then what you can do is you can see here that you have your notes. And can you see that? You can type your transcript here. So if you wanted to, you could generate a transcript in the notes section. You could knock off the outline if you prefer and just have the transcript there on every slide. And that would be one answer you could do. So if the person was able to read the transcript, then that would work for you.
Awesome. And I hope, George, that answers your question. All right. So the next one is from Sarah. Do you always send the quiz results to your email? Can it be overwhelming to get so many emails?
Well, this is where I admit that I have 300 research students, and the thing is that what we do is, and also maybe 100 to 150 members of staff who are supervisors. The supervisors, it's really important that once they've watched their presentation and completed what they need to complete, that they let us know. So we use the quiz in a way to gather which members of staff have completed the training. And then we can keep a note. So that's really important. With regards to students, what I do for the majority of presentations, I don't have that quiz and feedback at the end of every presentation. What I do is ask them for their feedback at the end of the year or at the end of a batch of courses.
Oh, okay.
So although early on I wanted to see if this technique worked and included quizzes, nowadays I only use quizzes with regards to staff, where I need to keep a record and the central team need to keep a record of staff who've attended the courses.
So more like a survey.
Yeah. And then there's a standard survey for students to complete.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Sarah. And the next one is from Andrea. How is your target audience accessing your course content? Desktop, tablet?
Right, well, until recently, we had a storage system called Equella, and it came along with the Pearson virtual learning environment. But now we've just switched over to something called Canvas, which a lot of your listeners might be using. If you're, the thing is that the old system we're using is probably going out of fashion very shortly. There might be an open source version, but basically Pearson's have stopped doing this. So it's pointless telling you, really, apart from saying I put it in an equivalent to a Dropbox that the university had access to. apart from saying that, there wouldn't be any sense in me going any further with that. But in terms of the VLEs, the content can go directly up to the VLE into a program space, and you can also share it. And I can show you really quickly if you want to see it in a VLE and how to get it there.
We
Would you like
have,
that?
yeah, I mean, if it's not too much time, sure.
No, it's very quick indeed. So this is our canvas, and I have this test module here that I'm going to open. And what I've done here is I've already uploaded one, but I'm going to go into SCORM, which is where SCORM packages are uploaded. And what you do is click on this upload button, you go to a zipped file, like so, click open, and that's it now going into the VLE. And you just click a button here, and it works. But I want to show you also what it looks like in here. So if I go into settings and up to student view, I should tell you how it goes in. Let's go back, exit student view. So then once it's in, you go into units as a teacher, and you say, okay, add a unit, unit name, we'll say iSpring 2, there's a unit. So this is now a part of it. I can make it, publish it, click on the plus. I can go to the assignment that's been uploaded, and because it takes a bit of time, the one I've just clicked on isn't uploaded, but this is an add item, and that's it. Now it's uploaded. If I want to view it as a student, just to show you what it looks like.
But how do your students view it? Do they view it on their desktop, on their computers, or on their mobile devices, like tablets?
They can do it in all of the above. The thing is that iSpring, because it is HTML5, this is viewable on a standard sort of smartphone. It's standard, and it can be viewed on a desktop like this, and anywhere. The thing is that the system is accessible from wherever the student is. So it doesn't matter if it's a phone, if it's a computer, Mac, or PC. It opens up in, say, Chrome. So it uses a web browser.
Okay.
And Canvas does have an app like many other VLEs, but I have only had access to Canvas for a very, very short length of time. So my students haven't used that yet, but I fully expect that this will be viewable within the app as well.
Right, and the next question from Andrea is, so do you take that into consideration when you are designing your slides? Some looked like they would perhaps be difficult to view on a tablet or a mobile view. For example, the links page when a PDF screenshot showed up. I'm just curious how that type of content displays, or if it displays well.
Right, okay. Well, you'll be able to look at that yourself when you have the material, because I'm passing that over to yourself, Polina, so you can pass it on. So you can have a look at the material on whatever you like later on. In terms of designing it, I designed it on a computer, that particular one, the one that's like this one here. So that one was actually designed on a computer for a computer. I don't expect anybody at all in the world to read that, which is why I have them popping up here, but it's really the narration that counts. Now, that's the sort of standard approach that I have in terms of displaying the links, and I think you'd agree that I don't think any platform would struggle to allow people to view that.
So you don't necessarily design for tablets, because you would expect that in iSpring the content will adjust to the screen size.
Yes, well, if we take this one and I shrink it, then it will get to a size that's very small. And I don't know how good your eyes are, probably not good enough. But certainly that sort of size of print, it's over 20 point, and certainly I can see it on my phone, my smartphone, and that's only a 5-inch, so it is possible. Also, it adjusts so that I have quite an old phone, and what I do is to publish it, I do it HTML5, but I also do it as Flash at the same time. And I'm not sure which one reads on my phone, but it has a slightly different, it has a different view. So you'll find that just because it looks like this on a PC doesn't necessarily mean it'll look the same on a smartphone device. You just have to have a look and see what you think. If it doesn't work, then do it a different way.
Right, and I also wanted to add that when you're designing an iSpring, you can do the preview on a tablet or on a smartphone right within iSpring, so that you see how your content will look on different devices, and you can go from there. You can tweak your content a little bit. And we have a webinar on this topic, which you may find in our webinar section on iSpring website. And we do have a couple more minutes for just another question from Jana or Yana. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. But the question is, what feedback did you receive from evaluations from the students?
What feedback did I get? Did you say? Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. What feedback did you receive from the evaluations from the students? I guess this is like the questionnaires that you've been sending out.
Yeah. No. So I got some feedback.
Basically,
actually,
how did they like the content that you provided?
They did like it, yes. They basically found that it was useful, and like this distance learning student said here, had difficulty. This person lives in Ireland, and as you can see in the blue type, the important bit, I have to be outside of the UK more. So there's difficulty in attending the face-to-face. They've realized that it's reusable in terms of a memory aid, and they've said excellent tools for reminding me about important points. This person had actually attended some of the workshops really early on, but didn't want to come back from Ireland for just 1 or 2 workshops. So this resource was there for them to look at writing a thesis, looking at methodology and planning the upcoming Viva examination. There was that anytime, anywhere comment, that it's easy to access and also fits in with other learning that is done. So it's flexible and just dovetails in with what other learning the student's doing. So all in all of the feedback's been very positive from staff and students. There is the odd comment that I would prefer face-to-face, but, and then there's a but I understand, and actually I have difficulty attending anyway. So it's one of those things where if the student can attend the face-to-face, then they can use the resource as a catch-up later or reminder. And if they can't attend, then they can watch this and they can Skype in or discuss it with me or somebody else. As I said, it isn't like I'm dealing with, well, I'm dealing with about 300 students, and not everyone is into a workshop at the same time. It's not like I'm dealing with a MOOC situation where you'd have thousands maybe. So we have that individual contact. Students have one-to-one supervision, and they have at least 1 a month, and they can Skype me or come in and see me as well, have a cup of coffee and a chat, basically whenever they like that I'm free. So they have access to me and the other members of staff when they need it, virtually or face-to-face, and the resource online. So they have quite a good deal, I think.
Thank you very much. And I think the time is up, so I do see a couple of questions that we didn't have time to answer, but I will forward that to you, Mark, so I hope you can get back to our attendees with your answers. And at this point, I would like to thank you one more time for sharing your case of using iSpring and your insights about it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and see you again sometime. Bye for now.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks to all of you attendees who have joined us today. I missed you very much because we had a break from webinars, and I will see you at our next webinar where we will talk about how to quickly launch online training with iSpring. We will be giving a quick overview of iSpring Suite authoring tool and also iSpring Learn LMS with one of our support engineers, Stefan Burley. Okay, so I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will be sending the recording of this presentation as well as of this webinar as well as Mark's presentations to you sometime either today or tomorrow. All right, so bye-bye everyone and have a wonderful day.
Bye, folks.